Let's hear the guitars, please, in B. Okay, that's fine. Let's make it. Take one. Hal, let's go, man. Here we go. Play hard and strong all the way.
Well, let's hit real hard on that very last A flat after we were tasked with a second. Boom.
And watch me on that part. Are we ready? Let's go. Take 5. Good vibration.
I'm picking up good vibrations. I'm picking up good vibrations. Give me excitations. I'm picking up good vibrations. Give me excitations. Picking up good vibrations.
While we're making the takes, Bob, we won't be able to have that camera going.
I'm Joe Normal, and you're watching Guitar Tales with Dave Cohen and Scott Guitarmas Engel. Have a rockin' day.
Listen up!
So you made me all reflective, Scott Guitarmas Stengel, with that great introduction you put together. We have right next to each other the late great Brian Wilson, obviously of the Beach Boys, who sadly passed away this week. This is June 11th of 25, depending upon when you're watching it. But then we get that great intro by the great and current Joe Normal, two caring, talented musicians who were separated by decades. And that really encapsulates what Guitar Tales is all about, is just really sharing the stories, accomplishments, and the art of artists who come on our show. One of whom, by the way, is Scott Guitarmas Stengel, who is our co-host, publicist, and editor, who creates art literally every day of his life. We're doing one of my favorite things, which is one of our Intermezzo shows. It's an in-between show. We have some great guests we're lining up. But in the middle, we like to just sometimes chat, talk a little bit about things that might be of interest to our listeners, and talk gear, guitar, sound, all sorts of great stuff. Every time Scott and I get together, were we to record it, which we usually don't, it would be a show, as we like to joke. But Scott, why don't you come right on in out of your wonderful green room and we'll start chatting.
Of course. And let's not
There we
forget
go.
our wonderful sponsors. I detected some emotion in your eyes there, David, over my little video about Brian Wilson.
There was.
It's always something about a fade to black video when somebody passes away. And Brian, we got the news today.
Yeah.
Reporting that he's gone.
And by the way,
but the music lives on, and you could see in that video he's just in charge of the whole process.
yeah,
At least in the early days, creating his vision, creating his sound. I mean, if you had a guy in a studio who sang like he did by himself, that really high voice, you'd be like,
yeah,
no, it's a pass. We're not interested.
right,
Yeah.
yeah,
But he, there he was talking to the great Hal Blaine on drums, great session player.
No, that's John Stamos you were looking at.
No, John plays with them now, but back then recording with the great Hal Blaine, and
Yeah.
those guys weren't chumps. They were seasoned pros, and they're listening to his instruction without
The
giving him any shit. I mean, maybe they gave him some shit. I don't know, but
Not on the video, they didn't.
not on the video that I
No, but
that I made for him.
there was he looks so invested in the product that they're putting together. And obviously they are, but he looked invested. He looked emotionally invested in putting that thing together. And I think more than 99 plus percent of the music we listen to, I think that song has been so oft played, commercials, TV shows,
Yeah,
movies, and the song itself, that I think I, for one, took all those sounds for granted
yeah.
until I watched that little sort of behind the scenes ish how they did it.
Yeah,
And
upright bass, but then he's. I'm probably sure he's got the bow for certain parts of the song where he's chugging, do 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 do,
wait,
and
how
then
was that?
and then he's plucking.
Wait, how was that?
Don't interrupt my thought. He's plucking the bass with a pick,
Yeah,
an upright bass to get a very
yeah.
specific sound, and
And
he's telling Hal Blaine, "I want you to like hit the drums really hard here," and you know uh, he was just creating this whole weird musical world that didn't exist really before he did it.
no, that sound that they created, and look, we could even talk about many of the shows we've done with the gear we talk about,
Yeah,
and I think my very first guitar was a Tisco.
yeah.
And the Tisco was actually it came from Japan, and it was designed to emulate the whole Beach Boys sound.
Hmm.
They made it affordable. You would buy it from Sears,
Hmm.
before you and I were playing, probably 10, 15 years before you and I started playing. But the Beach Boys sound created the popularity of that very specific, really great guitar tone.
Hmm.
And then on this show, we've spent a lot of time talking about it. And I at one point I went on eBay and I got a used Tisco because I haven't had mine in 40 years.
Right, right, right.
And they weren't good guitars by any stretch, but
No,
they were horrible as a matter of
but as
fact.
you know, on this show,
Yeah,
we'll get to this at some point. I
yeah.
because of the Beach Boys, I have my Seafoam green bass that I just bought a few days ago, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about
I love that bass.
cheap guitars, but this is a very cheap bass, and we'll have a
Yeah.
link for you. We one thing we should do before we get started blabbing here is thank our sponsors, which I
Yeah,
forgot
I
to do.
forgot to. I got so caught up in the Beach
So
Boys
I'll
thing.
take it. Let's do the first spot here.
Yeah.
You could do Little Andy's. Let's talk
Yeah,
about
I'm down.
Confections of a Rock Star. Cakes, cupcakes, rock and roll themed stuff, and pupcakes, which you are a big fan of. Those are the ones for
I
humans.
am.
The macaroons, of course, which are fantastic. There's your pupcake.
There we go. There we go. Made for dogs.
And custom cakes.
Yeah.
I mean, that looks like you can't eat it. Alice Cooper's been there, as other rock stars that visit Asbury Park these days who play the big stadium outside the Stone Cold.
They do. And here's our segue. Starting out inside of Confections on a Rock Star, of a Rock Star, and now moving on, Little Andy's Burgers. Look at that. Grown, and they become a part of the Asbury Park scene. Check it out on Cookman Avenue. Go, just walk around Cookman. We have two sponsors on Cookman Avenue. Absolutely delicious, and they are loyal to our show, which is great.
All in one location.
Yeah. Oh, I screwed that up. Are they still inside?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought they had their own place now.
Not yet.
All
I
right.
mean, I think they're thinking about doing something, but Asbury Park real estate's gone through the roof
It's
price wise.
crazy. It's absolutely
So I don't
crazy.
know how anxious I would be to buy my own storefront and start paying a lease. But
Yeah.
listen, I'm not the businessman of Andy's Burgers. Just go there and eat the burgers. They're fantastic.
Oh, they are. They're so good. They're so good.
Tonight's
So
show is caught my eye. I started commenting on this video on TikTok, the evil TikTok, and
the evil TikTok.
this guy put up a video where he very cleverly plays all the parts to the Beatles medley where the three guys are playing trading off guitar solos.
Yep.
And so he very cleverly labels who's playing what. And the styles and tones of these three solos at the end of the Abbey Road medley cannot be any different. They just cannot be
Yeah.
they're wildly different.
And he captures them really nicely.
He does a nice job. I don't know if he's
Yeah.
using the specific guitars that they actually use in studio. There seems to be a lot of talk about how John distorted his guitar and which guitar he was using. Was he using his Epiphone Casino, that big red hollow bodied thing
Yep.
that you see him play all the time? Um, and then, is there a telly involved there? Is George using a Telecaster or a Stratocaster? All these things are production notes, and the production guys arguing back and forth. They did a little deep dive this morning on some of the history of that recording session, and nobody seems to know exactly what they did to get some of these tones.
And two of them aren't even alive to talk about it,
Yeah.
you know?
And if they talked about it on Dick Cavett back in the day or Mike Douglas, it's a possibility.
I love those references, especially Mike Douglas.
Yeah. A big night. It's about this time of the day. I'd be coming home from school and watching Mike Douglas.
Oh, yeah, well,
Not knowing not having a clue who these people are who are sitting in the seats, but they all had terrific stories.
No,
Like
but you wouldn't be
nobody knows
watching
who the hell we are. We have great stories.
no, you wouldn't be watching Mike Douglas. Mom would have it on, and
Right.
you'd walk into the living room, and mom would have it on.
Oh yeah, you're always watching what your parents are watching because there are
Oh,
only
hell
3
yeah.
channels and 1 television, so
I know.
you don't get to
Yeah,
pick.
that's right.
Maybe Saturday morning you get to pick and watch, Lidsville or something.
WPIX, that's what we'd watch on Sundays, Abbott and Costello.
Shout out to Butch Patrick and
Yeah,
Lidsville.
that's right.
So let's take a look at the
Yeah.
video in its
Yeah.
entirety without chatting, and then we can go back and talk about some of the things that
Yeah, I wanna do
we
that.
like, and tell me who your favorite guitar solo is.
All right.
So let's we'll be on the side here while this plays. And this is from a fellow. We'll give him a plug at the end of the video. I think his name is Ricky J.
Yeah, he does a nice job.
His ID is on the bottom of the video. Here it is.
All right, I have an issue.
So thank you, Rickbone23. What's your issue?
I already have my thought as to who I like best, but tone-wise, because our show is all about tone, John's was a little muddy
Over
for
the
me.
top.
Little. I wanted to hear a little more treble. It
Well,
was
that's
a
good.
little.
'Cause that's what
Yeah.
makes the show so great because I loved John's tone.
Did you?
I thought his tone was uh, from outer space. Like nobody had. Well, maybe he was influenced by Hendrix. you
Well,
know,
I mean on this video, John's tone. I don't mean on the original.
Oh, you mean on the way he's doing it? Well, no, I mean it sounds pretty close to the original.
I know.
I'm
The being
original is very,
hypercritical.
very muddy.
Yeah. Yeah, I would have liked. It felt a little too bassy for me.
Yeah.
Now, all right. So your first impression, give me no determination. What is your first thought on that? Just overall on that video.
When I first heard it, I thought that Paul needed a little more gain on it.
Okay.
His solo was melodic, but it didn't have any gain to it. It was sort of like
Yeah.
plinky dinky rinky, it
Right.
didn't have any balls on. George's got George's sort of signature Les Paulish tone.
Yep.
And again, very melodic and ingenious way. He kind of went up the neck. He didn't sort of stay in the box and play a little solo. He was all over the place.
Yep.
And then John comes in
Yeah.
with his heavy metal licks. I'm going to say it, heavy metal.
He did.
I'm saying
Yep.
it. Maybe,
You-
I always thought that Helter Skelter was the first heavy metal song ever written.
I think
A lot
you're
of people
right.
like to
Yeah.
think that, Black Sabbath was the creator of heavy metal, but I got to go back to the Beatles.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. They
They had
didn't have
a
the
lot of
persona for
they
it.
had
Yeah.
distorted guitar and some of their early stuff, Rubber Soul stuff,
Yep, they absolutely did.
So this I thought would be an easy answer, but I did a little deep dive to Guinness.
Sorry, product placement.
I decided
Guinness wants me to do that. Sorry.
I wanted to figure out how they got the distorted tone. What did they do? Did they do it in studio? Was it in the amps? Did they have a pedal? After reading all this, I don't really have the answer. So we're going to rely on our fans to maybe comment and tell us that we're wrong, or school us, or tell us a story or what they heard
Well,
created the distortion for some of these songs.
you know what's interesting? So they're recording this in the 60s, right?
Right.
You and I were playing in the late 70s, so not horrifically far technology wise.
No,
And I'm listening to those sounds. I mean, pedals were the pedals were out for us. I don't know how many pedals were out for them, but
not
it
many, evidently.
no,
I
no.
looked
And
up a little bit about that.
I mean, if you go all the way back to Hendrix, as the story goes, he would have either Sun or Marshall,
Yeah.
and he would just overdrive a tube amp,
Hmm.
right? So I'm gonna guess. I'm thinking of a little Fender Princeton amp and just overdriving it, something like that, like a little, a smaller tube amp and just overdriving it,
Right.
because I think that's, and then when you and I were sharing some time in the green room an hour ago, we were talking about the whole cutting of the speakers thing,
Right.
right? And you said something I hadn't known about, which is that Link Ray might have been the progenitor of that. And
Yeah.
I had always thought it was the Kinks who were the first folks to slice up their speakers, and maybe they
That
copied
will
it from them.
definitely distort your guitar. The problem is that you can't switch it off.
No, you can't. Yeah,
So your guitar will always be distorted. You can't hit a pedal and make it go away, and get
no.
clean.
But the art of that has consistently amazed me, and I've talked about it a bunch of times on this show. Back in high school, I actually bought a 1 watt amplifier. Took a metal casing from something my late great dad had actually invented,
Mhm.
but it was just a metal box, and it's before any of us had stomp boxes. I installed a 1 watt amp with a power supply into a metal box, just had an input and an output. I would put my guitar into the 1 watt amp, and the output from the 1 watt amp would then go into the guitar amp.
Hmm.
So it's not really the same thing as a fuzz box,
Right.
but it was just putting an absurdly overloaded signal that's not supposed to have anything on it, right?
Mhm.
And it worked. And I had it for probably 10 or 15 years,
Oh, wow.
you know, um, and you had to control it. You had to control with the volume on your guitar. You couldn't overdrive too much. If you had an amp that had a weak and a hot input, you'd use the weaker input, but
Yeah.
it worked. But it had the only control was on off. I just had a power supply that I installed. So you think for these folks, I mean, they've got the benefit of the whole studio, but I have to think they're just overdriving a small studio tube amp.
Alright, so the 2 stories I heard, well, one of the famous Beatles distorted guitar tones is from Revolution, right? John's chunking away on this, like, this
Yeah.
really super distorted. Supposedly, that was a prototype distortion pedal created by a guy, and I can't think of his name now, but
Okay.
Vox stole the idea of this pedal and made
Right.
their own. There's also talk about them just like overdriving a Vox amp, a small Vox amp,
Right. Right. That
or
would be.
o- or overdriving the direct console, plugging directly into the console
Oh yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
distorting it that way with a couple of preamps. Overdriving one preamp and putting into another preamp and sending it to the console. Then by the time they did this Abbey Road thing, somebody gave John the present of an arbiter fuzz face that Hendrix was using.
Okay.
So people are saying that he had an arbiter fuzz. I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
All I know that his tone is nasty, dirty, and pissed off.
It really is. It really is. All right. So in terms of the lead itself,
Hmm.
which one appealed to? I think I know the answer, but which of the three appealed to you most?
Well, they all appeal to me in different levels, but
Right.
I remember very distinctly, even at a young age, hearing that last lick of John's, that where he's stretching 3 notes at the same time
Yeah.
with this heavy distortion, and it's on an upbeat, and it's kind of weird, and he's just and then right after that big loud noise, it goes to the piano, really quiet for the end, which is also dynamics. That
Yeah.
that grabbed my
Wait, how
attention.
is
So
that? Okay.
That
Just
grabbed
making
my
sure.
attention too. The how it was like really, really heavy 1 second, and the next second later, it's just a piano playing. Ding, 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 ding. I make a lot of noises. And don't ask me about that thing.
No, I don't want to overplay it. My poor joke, my poor dad joke.
So let's bring this up and let's see if I can pause this as we go along here.
All right, yeah.
First of all, great, bass layer to play a solo over, I think is a lot of
I know.
fun.
And by the way, those chords, just clever, percussive.
Very Beatley,
Yeah.
the sevenths and all that.
Yeah.
And then of course you got the that Hofner violin bass,
Oh, I know.
which has no high end on it at all. It's you talk about muddy. That thing is like got the tone control all the way down,
Yeah.
but it works. And they're sort of holding down this basic groove to play over the top of it. I had no idea which guy was playing what.
No, I had
First of all,
trouble following.
I had no idea that Paul was even playing guitar in this
No, me neither.
until this week.
Right, right.
And a lot of people commented on this video like, I didn't know that was John. I had no idea that was excuse me, that was Paul playing
Yeah.
the guitar. I knew that John and George were playing guitar because they play guitars in the band, and Paul's
Yeah.
primarily the bass player. A job he got because they didn't really have a bass player.
Right,
He was
right, right.
primarily guitar player, and like, well, guess what? You got to play the bass,
And he did just fine with it.
and he plays the piano, and he plays the guitar, and he's just fantastic.
Except that guy's not playing lefty like he's supposed to.
Well, he could flip the video around and could trick
He
everybody.
should have done that.
All right, let's hear the first riff. Now, the first solo of Paul's does have some distortion on it.
And this is what I want to comment on. I'll just say it now. I like Paul's the best because of how percussive it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just shining right through. It's cutting through.
So I already misspoke. I guess one of his leads is very, very clean. I thought they were
Okay.
all clean, but I was wrong. See, already I'm messing it up. I almost said the F word.
You can say fuck. It's okay. Yeah.
But my mom might be watching. Sorry, Mom. Okay.
She's probably said it and heard it.
All right, let's see what's next here. Now, that's the one I was talking about where he kind of goes up.
Yep.
We could have been safe and played in the little, like the box.
Yep.
Played
Yep.
like one of those scales, basic scales, blues scales, but he went up
He
and
slid all the way up there.
and he's stretching notes.
Yeah. And that lead could be in the 90s, not even just the 60s.
Yeah, you can see how we were all inspired by the Beatles,
Yeah.
and Hendrix and all the early guys.
Yep.
All right, so along comes John. Now he doesn't have the proficient chops that Paul and George have, but that's not going to stop him.
No, it's not.
So what does he do? I think that's great.
I do too.
I gotta say that reminds me of your playing, by the way. That riff right there.
Well,
That's you. I've
feel like
seen you
doing
play
right
that.
now. Yeah. Dave Chicka Chicka Cohen. Yes.
I've seen you do that. And I wonder if he purposely had his guitar a little bit out of tune. I don't know.
Maybe.
I have the good ear, so I'm hearing the guitars out of tune.
Yeah, I'm not hearing that.
I wonder if that was by design or he just didn't tune up. I feel like that kid he's so good that he knows to change the tuning a teeny
Wait,
bit.
let's pause a little bit. Let's look at the top frame. Is he like 11 years old? And he's loving the Beatles. I think there's something to be said for that.
There is. There's a lot of
Yeah.
youngins coming up who are
Yeah.
discovering the old music, our
Yeah.
old music, and going with it
Yeah, and actually I'm gonna guess he's in his 20s, but
easily.
yeah. But the fact that someone that young is taking the time to do this and learn it really damn well and getting those tones done, I think that's fantastic. For all the complaints we might have about the younger generation, I was amazed. My daughter knows the Beatles and the Stones catalog, and I appreciate that they appreciate this kind of music. I really do.
I always said it's timeless. I mean, even like
Yeah.
we had our interview with Bruce Sudano last week. You
Right.
know, I began to appreciate disco music more, believe it or not.
Yes.
Bec- I was before his interview, I was like, you know, disco like yacht rock, it's all throwaway crap. It's shit, you know. And then I really stopped when you stop and analyze it, like I've been doing on
Oh
all my
yeah.
videos, playing, you know, funk and different things.
Well,
Uh,
not only that, I mean, then we find out now that our guitar heroes were on a lot of those tracks, like Steve Lukather
right.
is on so many of those. And
Mhm.
for folks like Steve Lukather, it's just music. It's just really good music.
Yeah,
That's all they care
it's
about.
another
Yeah.
job.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true too.
All right, who's next? I'm getting mixed up. That's all three. So we're starting at the top again with Paul. This might be the Plinky Dinky solo. Nope, nope. Still got some distortion on it.
You got a little bit of dirt in there.
Maybe it was George that did the Plinky Dink Plinky.
We're,
Well,
we're about to
I don't know. No, it's every still a little bit got
I
a little.
like that bend is very tasty.
Yeah, that's very Georgish.
Yeah. And that kid's doing a great job, man.
Now instead of John coming in with those heavy chords, he's playing single bass notes in the lower end of the scale,
Let's see.
which I like. Not that very complicated at all, but very effective,
Yeah, it works.
right? And let's see who's
That's the one I like.
that's the one you like. Let's hear that one again. Now that's tricky. That's not an easy little lick, I don't think.
I'm sure not.
Yeah. So maybe it's after I was shitting on Paul this whole time. I think George is the Plinky Dink solo. I can't remember now. I'm all confused. Nope. See, that's
I'm
really
digging
good stuff.
George's tone now too.
Yeah.
You know, that traditional Les Paul sound. You know, I am partial to the Fender sound over Gibson as a general rule, but oh my god, that tone is so good.
And I was reading in my little deep dive that Clapton bought George a Leslie speaker to use
Oh, really?
to play through,
Is that
and
before or after he stole his wife?
I guess they must have still been buddies.
Yeah, I guess so.
Um, but he, you know, you could hear a lot of that in his material later on. This swirly whirly Leslie speaker noise that he uses in a lot of his songs.
That's so
Tell me
good.
that ending is not the best.
That's really
John
good.
is just like, no shit's given. He's like, I'm
Yeah.
distorted. I don't even know how he's distorting this thing.
But you know what it is? It's so musical and
But it makes you
satisfying.
think about the birth of punk and stuff. Like it wasn't about
Yeah,
shredding leads. It was just about heavy
yeah,
chords and rhythms and stuff. And that's what he's doing.
it is.
He's doing.
It-
Could John Lennon have launched the entire grunge culture and all that stuff?
Maybe. Yeah.
Because he's not a lead player. He's more of a, you know, rhythm player. And
No, you're right. You're
he's
right.
like, I love that he had the balls to say, "All right, you guys can shred, and I'm going to jump in here with my chords."
I know, and it works. It works.
I mean, tell me this isn't awesome. And then dead silence. I mean, that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
You know, the funny thing is, there. I think one could very legitimately argue that what John did is the most musical of all of them.
Hmm.
You know, he found his creative way to put in this satisfying insert into the sound space.
Well, again, it's different. Like everybody will say, "Oh, what's so great about the Beatles?" I've said this a bazillion times in my own
That's a
channel.
lot.
Um, you got to realize what music sounded like before the Beatles became huge.
Yeah, that's true.
It was somewhere between big band music,
Yeah.
doo wop, and a lot of a lot of that kind of stuff. There was it was rock and roll, but it was
No, it's like Bill Haley in the Comets.
not like how we know it to be.
No, because you think about Bill Haley, right?
Yeah.
like gonna rock around the clock tonight,
Kind of a rockabilly kind of a thing.
yeah, and it's sort of it's kind of jazzy and it's great, but
And you
it
still have the swing beat.
you have the swing beat, but I don't think you have the tude
Mhm.
that rock and roll brings to the fore.
Right.
And for what it's worth, why I was and remain partial to the Stones over the Beatles, it's because they bring even more attitude to the party,
Oh,
I
for,
think.
1,000,000% more attitude.
Yeah, yeah,
And they were also touring and playing concerts and stuff, and the Beatles kinda was like, "We're not going out anymore," which is another mind-blowing thing. You
yeah.
you
I don't understand
you're a
that.
huge artist and you're not gonna tour.
No, and well, they're still the most, either arguably or just plain the most successful rock band ever. So
Yeah.
I think, but I'm totally partial to the Stones over the Beatles,
And
loving
you
both of them.
and you put out "Hey Jude" and it's a 7-minute single.
Yeah,
I mean, all and I mean all number 1 hits were
yeah,
3 minutes or under, period, end of story. And the
yeah,
Beatles, "Oh, we don't care. We're having a 7-minute song."
yeah,
And that song was their biggest number 1, I think,
yeah.
for many, 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 many
And it
years.
opened the door, for AOR rock.
Yeah,
Remember that? Or
yeah.
AOR radio, where you get, like, look, that allowed Freebird, which is what, like, 75 minutes long,
Mhm.
you know? And, all that stuff we
I
got.
feel like "Hey Jude" is primarily a Paul McCartney song, and they were riding the coattails there,
Yeah, I
but they
agree
were
with that.
involved in the process of creating that song,
Yeah.
and they all went along with it. But that's the White Album's famously like, "Here's John's stuff, here's Paul's stuff, here's George's stuff, and, oh, yeah, Ringo, you can do a song if you want,"
Yeah.
you know? Uh, and they were so big that the record company couldn't fight them. Like, "That Revolution number 9 song stinks, John. Why would you wanna put that on the record? And why would you wanna release a double record? Nobody's gonna listen to all those songs."
Yep. Yeah, they
Just
were
broke all the rules. 2 records,
yeah.
kooky songs, there's some Indian sounding songs in there that George put in there, and you had Revolution number 9, you got Hey Jude, but then you have, like, Hey Prudence and
Right.
Helter Skelter, it's all over the place.
It is, it is. And the amazing thing, they're done in what, 72, 73.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So really 64, technically 63. So just a 9-10 year run.
I remember, the movie Apollo 13, the girl's, like, won't come out of her room, she's crying because the Beatles broke up. Her father's like, "The men are landing on the moon, get out of there."
Yeah, right, right. Yeah.
"I don't care, the Beatles are broken up."
I have a couple of 45s by the Beatles upstairs in the house.
Yeah, with the apple in the middle,
Yep, with the green apple in the
green
middle, if I
apple in the
remember
middle.
correctly.
Now is the apple and cut, or is it just an apple?
I think it's bitten out. I feel like I have to look at it. I haven't seen it in a bit, but I still have my original
By the way, where does
45.
Apple, the computer company, get the balls to use the name Apple as a company after the Beatles already used Apple as a company? Were they inspired by that? Stole
This
the
will
trade
tell us if we
stole
wanna look it
stole
up.
the trademark? I mean, what the hell?
Yeah, I could look it up.
Did
I
they
don't know if I
forget
feel like it.
to renew their trademark or something?
Yeah,
I always felt that to be very odd.
did.
They were technically Apple Core, and they were in the UK, so maybe, like, in the United States, "Oh, yeah, we can call our thing Apple,"
Wait,
which
hang on.
I think is derived from, like, Adam and Eve and an apple, like, I think that's maybe where it's from, and if you look at the Apple logo, which is right on my phone, it has a bite missing out of it.
Alright, here we go. No, Apple Computer, later Apple Inc., did not steal its name from the Beatles' record label Apple Corps. So, sorry, Bo's interrupting. There's someone at the door. While
He's
both companies use the same Apple, it's more accurate to say that Apple Computer chose its name, then later had a legal agreement with Apple Corps. I don't know what the hell that means.
So they were challenged in court for using the word Apple.
I guess so.
Looks that way, and
Yeah,
then they settled out of court somehow?
maybe. Let's see. Apple Corps was established by the Beatles in
It's Apple, I think it's Apple Core, unless I'm wrong.
Yeah, yeah, core, I'm sorry.
Get it? It's a play
Established
on words, like the Beatles is a play on words.
yeah. So, right, established in 1968. Steve Jobs came out with Apple Computer in 1976. Isn't that amazing? By the way, only separated by 12 years.
Yeah, and he goes and uses the name Apple for his
Yeah,
company.
yeah.
I always I never looked that up. I had no idea that was. the story
Oh,
behind that.
listen to this. Steve picked the name Apple so that it would be in the listings before Atari.
Really?
AP as opposed to AT. And then look at this. Apple Corps initially sued Apple Computer for trademark infringement
They did.
in
See?
19 you're right, you're smart, man. In 1978, but the case was settled in 81. The
Wow.
settlement to continue using the name Apple in its computer business, but Apple Corps retained the rights to use the name in the music business. In 2007, Apple Inc. reached a new agreement with Apple Corps, which included a payment of 50 million to 100 million for
Holy
the right
crap.
to use the Apple name. Holy shit! Yeah.
Why don't they just call themselves Peach? There's so many other fruits they could have picked.
Wow.
They
Talk
had to
about
pick
just like
and he
big
picked Apple
money.
because it starts with an A?
Yeah. But here's what's amazing. Think of how ginormous Apple Computer is,
He
right?
could have called this company Avocado and
Yeah.
still had an A.
But Apple is in like the Beatles, Apple Corps.
Yeah,
Four dudes. Maybe, had a manager and, had George Martin or someone like that.
right.
They're going toe to toe with Apple Computer and extracting 50 to 100 million from them over some name that they probably came up with when drunk or high or what have you.
It was a poorly run business as I understand it.
Yeah.
John famously went on television's like, we just want a place, or maybe that's my Paul voice. We just want a place people can come. They're not going to get pushed away because they have ideas. They could just come here and record for free. As soon as I heard
That's
the word,
pretty good.
as soon as I heard the word free, I love where you're coming from, dude, but you're not going to make any money.
Yeah.
Everything is free. Yeah, okay. Until you have to turn records, and
Yeah.
and a lot of their early artists in their stable of artists sounded just like them. It
Yeah.
didn't sound like anybody else. Like Badfinger sounded like the Beatles.
Badfinger, what that there is something. I just read an article about them. There was some kind of overlap, and I don't remember what it was. I don't
Mm,
know if they recorded a song that maybe Paul wrote. There's something
yeah.
where there was some kind. Maybe it was a shared producer, but there was some kind of overlap with the
No, they
Beatles.
did. They did help them write some of their hits, and
Oh, okay. Yeah.
either they did or didn't take writing credit on them. But
Yeah.
it's pretty well known that they were, being sort of their sound was being managed by the Beatles, so their end product was Beatlesque.
Oh, but if you're driving, in your car in the late '70s and a Badfinger song comes on, you could assume it's the Beatles if you
Right.
don't know any better.
Yeah, people might have been fooled into thinking that was a Beatles song and bought the records.
They were fantastic, by the way.
They were, yeah.
Yeah.
But well, their sound was not original at all.
No, it was
As good
it
as Badfinger was.
derivative, as they say, right?
Yeah, very derivative, yeah.
Yeah.
But just the chord structuring and the way it was sung and everything.
Oh, everything, and even the content.
Um, which is a different story compared to artists down the road which would make a Beatle sounding song as a tribute to the Beatles, like Tears for Fears did the Sowing the Seeds of Love,
Right,
which sounds a
right.
little bit like the I Am the Walrus, and it's got all that orchestration and the little piccolo trumpet and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
they're paying homage to the Beatles. That's a different story than being
Right,
managed
that's
by the
very
Beatles,
right, right, right.
because their song, all the rest of their material doesn't sound anything like Beatles stuff.
So Tears for Fears is from Bath, England. And I was there with my son. We went to London and we went on a little bus tour, like literally like a 19-hour bus tour all over the area surrounding London. We went to Stonehenge, which was
Mhm.
pretty cool. And we ended up in Bath. And there's this sort of lower area in this ancient city. And there were a couple of dudes on guitar doing a cover of, I forget which of the Tears for Fears songs. And I hadn't known that they were from Bath. And then someone there told me.
Oh, that's neat.
And it was really there was something amazing about that. It's like a 4, 5, 600-year-old town
Mm.
built into a mountain, and to hear some local folks with amazing acoustics doing a very nice job of it, there was something pretty cool about that.
I covered Seeds of Love with this bass here. I think it was
Wow.
great. Again, a new appreciation of these throwaway songs that nobody cares about. You hear them in the grocery store. That's where I hear all my songs at work.
Yeah, right,
And
right.
I write down, like, oh, I should try that one.
Well, that I get your Apple Notes. I know Roundabout
Oh,
is on your list.
that's right.
I
That was a
got one the
shared
other
list
day.
because I was trying to
Wait,
find
let me,
songs I could show Dave how to play
yeah,
when I go over
that's
his house.
that's right. When you teach me all sorts of
And you can see the
stuff.
first part of the list was I was very overzealous and thinking you could handle some of those songs, and it
Oh,
was
I
way
cannot.
over
I
your head.
cannot. Let's see. There's a long. Let's see. I'll be your roundabout. We have roundabout. Do you feel like I do? Yeah, I'm going to be able to play that lead. Driven to tears. Some cool Rush chords. Surrender, which I used to do with Todd with our
Mhm.
band. Jenny, we used to do. Dance the night away. Unchained. Like, yeah, I ain't doing that. And burning for you. But yeah, so when Scott does a list, Dave gets a copy of it.
That's where I get all my ideas.
Yeah. It
So
it
and the
says right here, "Buy more toilet." No, kidding.
so the time we have left, I want to plug this company that made this bass I got from Amazon.
Yeah.
Um, it's the name of the company is a very Chinese sounding company. It's Fojill.
Okay.
I think that's
It
how you say it. Fojill.
okay.
This bass, and I got the little QR code here. I am an Amazon affiliate, so if you click on that, I get a little piece of the action. Does not change the price for you. That is not a typo. that is the real price. 99.99
Wait, Scott, what about the
shipped,
gig bag? What about the gig bag? How much does that
and it
cost?
comes with a gig bag and a free wire. Right out of the box, it plays. I haven't done anything to it. I'm going to change the strings and do a little bit of a setup, but I'm just blown away. Now this is seafoam green. It comes in a bunch of other colors. They're all the same price. Um, I just had to give them a plug. I'm very happy with this bass.
I said to Scott, I don't even play bass. I mean, when I was in my band in law school, I'm bad enough on guitar. When any song that had an important lead, I had to try to play bass, and our bass player was actually a really good guitar player. So that's as close as I've come. But I have played bass in front of people, and I want a bass. So I'm looking at that, and I don't know how I don't buy one. And there were a few other colors I was interested in because there were some really nifty looking colors in there.
The only reason I bought this bass in the first place is because I wanted a seafoam bass to go with my seafoam green guitar called the Sigmund that I built a couple
Yeah,
months ago. And I'm like, I was gonna build a bass, and I'm like, for $99.
yeah,
And then when I got it, first of all, it has two sets of pickups, and not just the one.
right.
It's got this perloid pick guard on it. The fit and finish is great. The neck is great, and it's got a roasted maple neck
That's
with
ridiculous.
the truss rod adjustment in the middle of the body over here, and not at the top with that cheapo bullet thing that Fender used to do.
Right.
So there's some like high end quality to this bass, and if you want to hear it in action, just go to any of my Guitar Mrs. pages on TikTok or Instagram or whatever, and you'll
Oh, it
see me
sounds great. Yeah. You're doing good stuff with
plugged
it.
in, no effects, just plugged directly into a Black Star amp, a guitar amp, because it plugs into the phone. Good old Black Star, um, and that's it.
That's amazing.
So very happy. I'll give them a plug, and
I think the
I'm
next
sure they won't
show
see this because they're overseas somewhere
you
making these
gotta
basses.
you should do a QR code for the show me the Black Star again.
Oh, I don't have a QR for the Black Star amp. I have
Uh,
a QR code for our mugs and stuff that nobody wants to buy.
people
I drink out of this mug every morning, which made me buy the base because I'm like, life is short. I'm gonna buy a $99 base.
how do you not? That's
And
four drinks in an
we got
expensive bar.
T-shirts. We got a Les Paul version. We got a Strat version. They said life is short. Buy the guitar,
I
and
like
the
that.
Guitar Tales logo I think is on the back, as is the mug.
I think it is too.
So these
Yeah.
are all in the merch store.
We have a
Link
good merch store.
links here on the show and links in our link tree. Bio. Link is in the
Yeah.
bio, as they say in the business, Dave.
As they do. They say it every single day.
And just like that, we ate up 45 minutes talking about
I
nothing.
know. That's right. I like it. All right. Well, say goodnight,
Do you
Gracie.
want to end it here? Let's end
I'll
it
end
here.
it here. Let's end it here.
Let's end it
Yes.
with I've been seeing a lot about
Bumblefoot.
yeah, Bumblefoot. He's got a new record out.
He does. Yeah.
Our other friends Plush are putting a new record out.
They are.
It's
That
getting to the
song is
point
gonna
where a
be
lot of our guests that just we knew they had something. They didn't have anything going right at that moment, but we knew they were going to be great, and
yeah.
they're all coming out with fantastic thing.
By the way, I'm going to give a very vague hint. We have someone from with a number one record. We already had one guest with the number one record, and I just found out you don't even know this yet. He's going to do our show after his new record comes out.
Oh, he's got a record coming out too. All right, very
Yeah,
cool.
so we're going to help him promote it.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah,
As we do, promote all our guests,
we do. We do.
all our friends, Joe Normal, Anthony Gomes, Mariah Famika. I can go on and on. They just off the top of my head that have new stuff coming out, and they're making music in the music business.
Oh wait, hold on. Phil X and his affiliation with
Oh
Triumph.
yes, I almost forgot. Phil X is playing
He's
with
working-
Triumph and destroying
Oh, he is destroying
audiences.
when he's
Swing-
not playing with Sammy. When he's not playing with Bon Jovi, yeah, he's
got a
he's
gig
tearing
with,
it up.
and he's from Canada, so that's like a really big deal for his 11-year-old inner self is freaking out. He said,
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, and he has history with Triumph because he's done stuff with them in the past. I
"Oh,
believe.
has he? Okay,
Yeah, I think that came out on our show that he already has some history with them. So very good stuff.
And I'm going to use a Dave term here. You know what's funny is
Wait,
I
hold
had
on.
I had
I
I
have
had
to-
heard from
yeah.
I heard from a few people. Hey, you're friends with Phil X. Can you text him and find out if he's with Triumph? I'm like, it's all over the internet. I'm not going to bother Phil X.
Right. But I think he is. I think I don't know if he's doing the
I
whole
do have
tour.
Phil's phone number, but I haven't really used that much except for Christmas, holidays, and birthdays. That's it.
Yeah. And extortion and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
When a famous person gives me their
Yeah.
number, I don't abuse it
Yeah. Yeah.
unless I'm texting Dave Cohen.
That's right.
All right,
All right.
it's time for Bumblefoot and Star Wars.
All righty.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll
We
see you
will
next time on Guitar Tales. Dave?
That's it. I got nothing more.
All right. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Hello, I'm Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and you're watching Guitar Tales.